Good morning from Miss Graham. Welcome back, everyone. We'll be moving forward with our community project assignment, which is the Chesapeake Bay and Maryland's Watershed, saving the Bay through education, advocacy, and restoration. But before we move forward, please listen to your do's and don'ts and adhere to the classroom rules. Ms. Spencer?
As far as adults, same thing as every week. Please just be respectful. In the chat, do not put anything that does not pertain to the work.
All right. So let's hop into it.
Alright, so your objectives for this week, will examine the current state of the Chesapeake Bay, to understand how human activity impacts itself.
Two things. We're going to examine Chesapeake Bay and we're going to understand how we humans impact the health of the bay. So,
Alright.
Go ahead, Ms. Spencer.
Alright, so for your warm up, the first question you'll be answering is, do you believe the Chesapeake Bay is healthy? Do you think the bay is healthy? And if you could rate the health of the Chesapeake Bay using a letter grading system, how would you rate the Chesapeake Bay? So you would give it a letter A being excellent, F failing, if you believe it's really healthy, or if you believe it's really unhealthy.
All right, everyone. So here are two different maps of the Chesapeake Bay. The first map is a view from like a map that's located in a book or an almanac. And the second picture is a satellite image. Okay. So look where we are. Well, it doesn't show us exactly where we are, but we're in about like this area, and the Chesapeake Bay is here. Okay. All right. Look how the Chesapeake Bay is connected to the different rivers and creeks and streams that's on the watershed. And it touches from those same states that we talked about from last week. And look at the satellite image. Isn't it pretty? The green, of course, is the land, and the blue, of course, is the water. The more green, the more healthy. Um, we just wanted to take a piece out for the Chesapeake watershed. So here, of course, here is a map of the United States, and we took out the piece that represents the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And as we discussed last week, that is a six-state land representation. Oops, no, go back. And those six states are New York, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware. This is all of Chesapeake's Bay watershed, okay? And then you have the bay right here, right here. Cool. So we're going to watch a video, and before we watch the video, I want you to pay close attention to the video and take some notes on some things that they're talking about. Listen to the things that they are referring to in reference to our bay. Okay? All right.
It was bumpy for boaters or anyone on a local beach. It was like we were in a downed forest. I've never seen so many tree-sized logs. The trash and debris we saw last summer in the bay are now bagged up in a report card any student
took a huge hit in 2018, and our State of the Bay report score dropped from a C minus to a D plus.
It was a decrease of just 1 point, down to 33, but Chesapeake Bay Foundation President Will Baker calls it a big indicator of the recovery efforts. The report looks at 3 categories: pollution, habitat, and fisheries.
The recovery is fragile, and last year showed just how fragile it is.
The Bay Bulletin captured volunteers earning some sweat equity hours last summer as they tried to clear out these enormous tree branches that traveled downstream from the Conowingo Dam after it could no longer hold them back following severe storms.
We went out in our boat without knowing what we hadn't seen the reports. And it was so dangerous. We thought we were going to be stranded out there.
Lisa Lutz helped neighbors in the Bay Ridge community of Annapolis with the cleanup.
It was a disaster.
Baker points the finger at Pennsylvania in part for not controlling runoff from agriculture that travels down from the Susquehanna River and dumps in the bay. At a meeting this summer, there was a commitment from state leaders to make some changes.
Pennsylvania needs to step up its game.
The report card shows shad took a hit, but CBF scientists say there is a ray of sunshine. Scores from bay grasses and dissolved oxygen went up, and there was no change for rockfish, blue crabs, and oysters compared to the last report card 2 years ago.
Adult crabs, the numbers are up, but juveniles are down. And so over the last couple of years, we've seen sort of this mixed bag, but overall no change in score, but reflecting some good news and bad news. The oysters have been hit by everything from disease to overfishing to water quality. I think from those perspective, we really need to be focusing a lot of our efforts on bringing the oysters back.
If you're wondering about your part, Will Baker says there are steps each one of us can take to help bring up the grade.
Probably the best thing individuals can do, believe it or not, is to drive less, certainly recycling, using less chemicals around the home. All of those sort of things contribute.
And Baker says to get involved politically if you want to make waves and help CBF meet its goal of scoring a 40 by 2025. For Chesapeake Bay Magazine's Bay Bulletin, I'm Cheryl Costello.
All right. Now, I'm not going to play that again for you, but I want you to rewatch the video again and really listen to what it is that they're talking about in reference to our bay. Look at some of the things that you see in the bay. All right, let's move forward. Ms. Spencer.
Sorry. As you reflect on the video, why is it important for people to volunteer to help clean up the bay? So after watching the video, why do you think it is important for people to volunteer to help clean the bay? Why is it needed for people to volunteer?
All right. Now, it's break time. Take this time to go ahead and stretch. If you need to run and get something, this is your time. Pause the video and take a few seconds to yourself. All right? So, we did a video summary for you. So, based on the video, it talked about many different things. It gave us a lot of information, right? So, let's talk about what the video was talking about. So, overall, the health score of the bay dropped. The bay was full of debris and trash. So all the branches and old grass and dead tree branches you're seeing floating in the water that the people was trying to clean up, that was the debris and the trash that they were cleaning up. Now, some states in the Chesapeake watershed was not controlling the runoff that dumped into the bay. So you saw the big log that the gentleman was trying to saw in half to get it about the band. That it took more than one person to be able to just get it out of the water. Those were some things that have been runoff from other states. Specifically, they mentioned Pennsylvania. Okay, they had not been controlling their runoff, which dumps into the bay. So, if it means it dumps into the bay, it means it was coming from other waters, other water sources. So, other bodies of water. It could have been coming from their rivers, the dams, creeks, streams, different sources. But yeah, they weren't controlling their runoff, which means now you're getting all the trash and all the debris from other water sources into that now is just being flown into the bay. People on the Bay Bridge, people of the Bay Bridge community, I'm sorry, help clean up the debris and trash that was found overtaking the bay. Okay, so you saw the people of the community get together and they decided they was going to help clean the bay. Okay, they wanted to clean up their community. So the health of the bay is determined by three factors that are studied and monitored closely. Those factors were pollution, habitat of the bay, and fisheries, which is the populations of different organisms in the bay. Okay, so that means for the fisheries, they study the population numbers, whether did the numbers go up, did they go down, are they maintaining the same, are they remaining the same, pollution, how much trash they find in the bay, or different types of pollution that affects the bay. And then you have the habitat. So how was the habitat? Because now you have the underwater grasses and you have marshland that's all attached to the Chesapeake Bay, and they monitor those habitats. Are they thriving, or is the land dying, or are the organisms dying off? They monitor all these different things. Organisms in the bay, such as the oysters, the population has been affected by diseases and overfishing. Okay? And last but not least, oops, nope, that wasn't it. The last thing is recycling, using less chemicals at home, and driving less are ways we can improve the health of the bay. All right. So these are some points that they went over in the video that they talked about and they went over in depth. So keep that in mind. You should take notes. You should write this down. Let's work on our classwork. So in Google Classroom, you'll see this chart that talks about the state of the bay. Now, this is a grading chart where it has the three different categories that are monitored by scientists and the things that they look for within those categories. So, in pollution, they monitor the nitrogen indicator, they monitor phosphorus, they monitor dissolved oxygen, the water clarity, toxics. In the habitat, they monitor forested buffers, wetlands. These are types of habitats that they monitor. Underwater grasses and resource lands. Okay? And then they monitor rockfish, populations of rockfish, blue crabs, oysters, and shives. Okay? So these are the things that they monitor. This is what they look at. And here's the information that the scientists came up with. Here's the score for each individual indicator within the three categories. It has an actual number score and it has a letter grade. Okay. Now, based off this information, we have some questions we want you to answer. The first question is, what are your feelings? What are your first feelings or impressions when you look at this table above? Okay. What do you feel? Okay. And number two, which indicators do you believe are the most important of the bay, the health of the bay, and explain? So, when it refers to indicators, it's talking about these 12 different things here. You have three categories. You can pick any category, you can pick any indicator that you feel is important. Which one do you feel, or which, and you may think it's more than one. Which of these indicators are the most important when it comes to the health of the bay? And explain your answer. Okay? Let's move forward. Now we have another chart that we want you to observe. Okay? Now, based on this information, this has information that goes across for years of time. So we have 1967, 1983, 1998, and 2018. Okay? And then we have, based on the numbers, we have it's dangerously out of balance, it's improving, is it stable, or saved? Okay? We are within this bracket here from 2010 to 2025. Okay? So we're looking here in this area. Based off of this information, what does the graph show you about the Chesapeake Bay currently? So that would be within these two um, margins here. What does it tell you about the bay currently? And the second question is, do you believe your community where you live at currently contributes to the Chesapeake Bay condition? Meaning, where you live at, do you believe that where you live currently helps or I'll say affects? Do you believe where you live affects the Chesapeake Bay health right now, the condition that it's in right now? All right, Ms. Spencer.
Alright, so benefits of keeping up the Chesapeake Bay. What are some natural benefits of cleaning up the Chesapeake Bay that can help support and enhance human life? So, it's a reflection activity. So, think about your answer and then respond to the question in the answer box. So, this will be in Google Classroom. After you answer that question above, find a person who has a different answer from you but you agree with, and just comment below theirs and write why you agree with them.
Now, I know this seems lengthy and wordy, but just to break it down, natural benefits, things that happen naturally, okay? And we're talking about cleaning up the Chesapeake Bay. How can cleaning up the Chesapeake Bay help support and enhance human life? So, how can cleaning up the bay, the benefits from cleaning up the bay, help and support? I mean, how can it support and enhance our life, our everyday life? Okay, moving forward. So let's talk about some of these benefits that cleaning up the bay has. You have food production And air pollution treatment, climate stability, and waste treatment. Food production is the harvest of agriculture produce, including crops, livestock, and livestock byproducts, the food value of hunting, fishing, and etc., and the value of wild caught aquaculture, produced fin fished and shellfish. So I know it's said a lot, right? So let's think about this. Harvesting agriculture, so that will be crops, right? So the food we eat, so your fruits and vegetables that we get from these wonderful farmers who grow these crops on their land. Then you have the farmers that raise livestock. So now we're talking about the cows, the chickens, the what else? Expensive. I'm having brain lock. Cows, chickens, pigs. There we go. um, uh, goat. Some people eat goat. So and lamb. All those different things that they raise on their farm. This affects how we eat, right? And then you have those fishermen who goes on the water and they go crabbing or they're catching these different types of fish, wild caught fish that we like, whether it's trout or uh, cod, these different, just different types of species of fish that we eat. Okay, and then you have oysters, which is the shellfish. You have clams, all those different types of things that people go out and they catch for us, or whether we go out and do it for ourselves, right? Because we do have people in America who do live off the land and they do it themselves, right? They go hunting and catch things themselves. But that's food production, right? So the Chesapeake cleaning, that's a benefit from cleaning up the bay. It helps keep this at a high rate. We affect this. So we affect our own food chain, okay? Air pollution treatment. So we talked about a while ago how plants play a role in our breathing, correct? So we talked about photosynthesis. So the air is filtered from by the trees and different other vegetation life. So that underwater grass, or whether you're talking about sea moss, uh, and or sea grass, all of that is a part of uh, breathe, being able to breathing. That's all that is a part of. I'm sorry, treating the air. Because what it does is it takes in, it absorbs, and it filters the pollutants that's in the air, right? So that they can produce better oxygen for us. It reduces nitrogen and carbon dioxide, okay? And it reduces the illnesses and it improves the quality of life. So the better air that we're breathing in, less likely it is for us to get sick or experience some of these diseases that is due to just poor air quality, okay? Climate stability. So, as you know, we are currently in what is known as global warming, where the polar ice caps are being melted. Why do you think that is? Well, it's because the land is being influenced and the biology is the biology of the land, what it does is causing the ice caps to melt. So this process is, it means that it's not stable because we need those ice caps. Polar bears need those ice caps, or else there's nowhere for them to live. Okay, so how we treat the water affects our climate as well. Well, how is that, Miss Graham? I'm glad you asked. So let's take raining. We see this picture of the clouds and it's raining, right? So a part of the water cycle towards the end, what happens is, okay, we know it rains, and then rain goes into the water, right? Or it goes into the plants. But once it's in the water, it evaporates and goes back up to the clouds. Now, but what does that have to do with anything, Miss Grant? I'm glad you said that. If the water, if it's raining and it's going into the water, but the water is constantly polluted, that means it's dirty and it has um just trash and all kinds of filth within the water. Once it evaporates, it's taking those toxins in when it evaporates. So that means those toxins is going back up into the air and into the clouds. So therefore, when it rains again, we're getting those same toxins that we put into the water back into our rain, which now affects our food pollution, our food products. How? Because the crops need the water in order to grow, which means we're pouring dirty water into our crops. They're absorbing the dirty water, which is now going into their genetics, and then we're ingesting it, which once again causes us to get sick. Okay, so that's what I mean by climate stability. We have to keep the bay clean so that these negative effects can stay in control. Okay? So the climate stability influence of the land cover and biologically medicated processes on maintaining a favorable climate. Okay? Meaning that it's not out of whack. It's not snowing when it should be sunshine. So it's not snowing when it should be summer. That makes sense. And promoting human life, which once we said with the crop productivity and recreations and other services. So we talked about the crop productivity and how the rain affects the crop productivity. Also the sunshine. If it rains too much, then the crops won't grow. They need the sunlight as well. Okay. Now, waste treatment. Waste treatment is the removal or breakdown of nutrient pollution and other chemicals by vegetation, microbes, and other organisms, resulting in a few less toxic or lower volumes of pollutants in the system. So, I'll give you an example of waste treatment. Oysters actually aid in waste treatment. They oxidize they help filter the pollutants that's in the water. That's a form of waste treatment. But if it's too much pollution in the water and not enough oysters to filter the water, then now we have an imbalance. Okay. Um, which is also why we have waste treatment plants. So for example, when you flush your toilet, it goes to a waste treatment. It treats the waste that we are flushing down our toilets. And then once it's treated, then some of the water goes back into our water systems, okay? So these are just some ways that we benefit by cleaning up the bay. Are there any others? Of course. We have water flow regulations, recreations, water supply, and aesthetic value. Okay? Now, the water flow regulation is a modulation by land cover of the time of the runoff and the river's discharge, resulting in less severe drought, flooding, and other consequences of too much or too little water available at wrong times or places. So, for example, when we get our rainy seasons, okay? We have to help control the water flow so that we're not flooding our communities or causing a drought for our communities, which would be harmful to the crops and awful for farmers as well as us because now this affects our food supply. Okay, so this helps us keep in balance. Help us keep balance. What's affecting our land? Okay, and recreation. So the availability of a variety of safe and pleasant landscapes, such as clean water and healthy shorelines that encourage the ecotourism, outdoor sports, fishing, and wildlife. So, people that like to go out and let's say people that like to swim in the bay, there are people that like to go exercise and swim in the bay. We need to keep our waters, we need to keep the bay clean so that they're not swimming in filth. The ecotourism for this is for the fishes and other organisms that live in the bay. They need a healthy place to live so that we can have a healthy food supply. Okay? This now, this kind of relates to how we talked about when we were talking about genetics and mutations. If the bay isn't healthy and we're not doing our part to keep it clean, then organisms can go through mutations. And mutations are not always good for the organism, let alone the the for us because the organisms in the bay are our food supply. Okay? The water supply, filtering and retention, shortage and delivery of fresh water, both quality and quantity for drinking, irrigation, industrial processes, and other uses. We need clean water. Bottom line. Bottom line. We need clean water. It's not good to use dirty water to clean your clothes. Because, I mean, your clothes just get dirty, right? They're really not being clean. It's not good to use dirty water to drink. It's not good to water your crops with toxic water because now your crops become toxic. Okay? It's just a domino effect. So we need clean water for a healthy water supply. And aesthetic value. The role that beautiful, healthy nature areas play in attracting people to live. Okay? You don't want to live in a ran down and it don't look nice uh place. You want to see the beautiful trees, especially during fall season and how they change colors, okay? This is not just for people where you live, but also where we work and where we recreate in the region, okay? Often it reflects a property value. So the better your land looks, the higher your property value is going to be, okay? Which is why it's important that we keep the bay healthy. Your exit ticket. Now, you'll find these same questions in Google Classroom. Your exit ticket. You are to answer these three questions based off of our lesson for this week. And number one reads as so: what could each of us do to help improve the health of the Chesapeake Bay? What could we do together to help improve the health of the Chesapeake Bay? Ms. Spencer. Ms. Spencer.
Yes, sorry.
So, number 2.
I just froze again. Exit ticket.
Number 2.
How can you help support and maintain the proper functioning of the Chesapeake watershed?
You want to explain that? Like what we looking for the answer?
So, what are some things you could do to help support and maintain? That could be maybe cycling. Can you go help and maybe pick up some trash? Look at some habits that you have that you think contribute to maybe the watershed having bad a bad grade.
Okay. And number 3. How do humans, us, you, your cousins, mom, dad, how do we impact the Chesapeake Bay? Humans everywhere. How do humans impact the Chesapeake Bay? Whether it is good or bad, how do we help or how do we hinder the health of the bay? Okay? So, guys, that is all for us for this week. Um, please, 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 if you have any questions or you are in need of help, email myself, Mrs. Graham, or Miss Spencer. If you need to set up a time frame so that you can have one-on-one assistance, email myself or Mrs. Spencer, and we can set that time aside just for you. Okay. Um, if you are having trouble with submitting your assignments, please email us so that we can get you some help and we can figure out a better way for you to be able to submit your work. Okay. But overall, we hope that you have a great week, and we'll be signing off. Sayonara.